We've been saying for a long time now that the media are lying about electric cars. They're making up stories. They're making up garbage. Unfortunately, this extends as far as so-called pro-EV websites. But you know what? The media rarely will admit to their lies and deceit. Well, that is until yesterday. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Seb Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to see you. Guys, this is a kind of interesting story here. The reason I find it interesting is because a couple of newspapers have contacted me over the last couple of years. This was one of them, and they said, we want to quote you in a story. We're going to use your video. The Daily Mail got in contact with me, and I went, you know what, cool. This is going to be a pro-EV story. I'm up for that. But now the Daily Mail have admitted that they made up a story about electric vehicles causing potholes in the road. Now, another thing the media does is like Top Gear. They do these videos, these reviews, not just Top Gear, Auto Trader, other sites. They say EVs are really heavy, or Tesla vehicles are really heavy. And then you actually look at the facts and it shows you that actually the Tesla vehicle is the same weight as the equivalent BMW M3 or Mercedes C-Class, whatever. So that's another thing that happens often. But in this case, this story was just completely fabricated. Pallavi Sethi said the basis for complaining to the Independent Press Standards Organisation in the UK about the Daily Mail, which is one of the biggest newspapers in the world, about their misrepresentation of a report from the Asphalt Industry Alliance, because this report was completely fabricated. In yet another instance of British newspapers, and not just British newspapers, but worldwide media, promoting misinformation about electric cars and climate change, the Daily Mail has been forced to withdraw an inaccurate and completely untruthful article that falsely claimed a report on the condition of British roads. It said that potholes were caused by electric vehicles. As in, first of all, there's not very many electric vehicles on the roads in the UK. Less than 5% of all cars in existence in ownership in the UK are electric. And the Daily Mail tried to say that those vehicles were causing all potholes in the UK. Now, of course, if you have even half a brain, you'll know that it's actually not vehicles that cause potholes. It is vehicles, but it's not small vehicles. It's not electric cars. It's not even normal cars. It's not gasoline cars or diesel cars. It's trucks. Trucks cause more than 95% of the damage on the road. How do I know that? Well, Shanna, she worked for Vic Roads. She worked for the roads organisation here in Australia for many, many years, more than a decade. And that was her area, dealing with potholes on the road. And yeah, it was assigned. It is an unquestioned fact that 95%, in fact, more than 95% of the damage is caused from big semis, big trucks. The enormous weight of those vehicles after it rains, when water is sitting on the road, they basically drive that water into the road, and that causes the little holes to build up, and then they become bigger. The article titled, "Heavier Electric Cars Blamed on the £16 billion Cost of Pothole Plague," was published in the Daily Mail on the 19th of March this year. And obviously, I'm going to guess most people who read this weren't smart enough to realize it was complete nonsense. It was written by the newspaper's its chief political correspondent. It's not an opinion piece. It was unbelievable. His name is David Churchill. And this was part of the Daily Mail's ongoing campaign to mislead its readers about electric vehicles and other new technologies to cut greenhouse gas emissions. So who exactly is funding the Daily Mail? Why are the Daily Mail intentionally writing numerous articles to basically try to defame renewable energy and electric cars and solar and batteries? What is the reason for that? Could their backers be fossil fuel companies? I'm going to guess that's probably the case. The article misrepresented a report by the Asphalt Industry Alliance by suggesting it singled out electric vehicles as being responsible for the pothole crisis in Britain. The opening paragraphs said this: "Heavier electric vehicles and larger cars are helping push Britain's crumbling roads to breaking point. The pothole backlog repair bill now stands at a record £16 billion. By the way, if you're Australian, that's about 30 billion Australian dollars, about 20 billion US dollars. The warning comes in a report which highlights how changing driving habits are putting increased pressure on local roads across England and Wales." The article said, "The bill for payouts has soared by nearly a third, from £11.6 million to £15.2 million. This is to people who have received damage to their cars driving over these potholes. according to the report by trade body the Asphalt Industry Alliance. It said the growing crisis was being fueled by increased average vehicle weights from EVs on a deteriorating network. This includes more than 1 million electric vehicles, 3 times the number in 2019, now on the roads. EVs cause twice as much stress on tarmac because they greatly outweigh their petrol or diesel equivalents. Now, to give you some context on these weight claims, well, I believe about 55% of the electric cars in the UK are Tesla vehicles. Now, Tesla Model 3 weighs about 1,800 kilograms, right, which is about 3,900 pounds. That's the average Tesla Model 3 weight across the different variants. Some are lighter, some are heavier, depends on the model. The equivalent internal combustion vehicle is identical weight. So the claims that they're even heavier to begin with, when you look at the fleet average, it isn't even true because there are not actually many SUVs. There's very few large electric SUVs in the UK, very, very few, a minuscule number of large electric SUVs on the roads in the UK, meaning the average EV on the roads in the UK is actually significantly smaller than the size of the average internal combustion engine vehicle, meaning there's no weight disparity whatsoever. The AIA's annual Local Authority Road Maintenance Survey Report 2024 made none of these claims. Interesting. In fact, it does not discuss or refer to electric vehicles in any way. So the entire report about asphalt, roads, potholes never mentioned EVs at all. The report says a sizable number of respondents who came from local authority highway departments in England and Wales have reported having to cope with unforeseen highway maintenance costs over the year. The reasons identified for this include dealing with the effects of extreme weather, rising traffic volumes, and increased average vehicle weights on a deteriorating network, as well as the impact of inflation, which has had a noticeable impact on costs. Now, have cars gotten heavier? Absolutely they have. Have a look at the weight of a Mercedes-Benz C-Class today. I mean, you can get a plug-in hybrid version that weighs about 2,000 kilograms or around 4,200 pounds. Mercedes C-Class probably weighed about 1,300 kilograms about 15 years ago. So it's got nothing to do with EVs. In general, car weights have gotten higher, but the biggest reason for that is technology, right? It's increased safety aids, all the electronics, all these new computer chips. We're adding so many things to cars to make them actually meet the 5-star safety requirements of the European crash testing, of Chinese crash testing, of ANCAP Australian testing, of the same thing in the United States. So most of the reasons for the weight increase have to do with technology and safety, and also having bigger cars in general. The size of cars has increased. Nothing to do with EVs though. Many people, including Private Eye, called out the newspaper for making up yet another bogus story about electric cars. And they say the Daily Mail, it's become their thing to try and defame EVs. Now, instead of actually admitting to this fault, the Daily Mail has simply deleted the text in this article that blamed EVs. So they haven't come out and said, yeah, sorry about this. They just deleted that actual text after they were called out by numerous people for completely making up things. Since 2023, the Daily Mail has published numerous misleading and outright false news articles and opinion pieces aimed at undermining renewable energy and electric cars, particularly the phase out of petrol and diesel, to achieve net zero emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050. Earlier this year, Richard Bruce, Director of Transport Decarbonisation at the Department of Transport in the UK, testifying before the House of Lords Climate Change Committee, acknowledged a concerted campaign of misinformation against EVs. There is an anti-EV story in the papers almost every day, he said. Such false reporting is damaging, says the Grantham Institute, and the Daily Mail is one of the biggest culprits. According to a study conducted in 2022 by Climate Action Against Disinformation, in the UK, frequent readers of the Daily Mail were found to have the strongest belief in prominent climate change misinformation narratives and in believing that EVs were bad. And you know what? This lady here in a video I just got sent as well, I mean, maybe she's maybe she reads the Daily Mail. She's actually walked up to a Tesla driver and become furious at him for polluting the air by idling his car. I'm pretty sure you can't idle a Tesla. Anyhow, I guess the Daily Mail are pandering to morons, but unfortunately, there's a lot of morons out there. Rather than doing this, they could be educating these morons. That might be a better option. What do you guys think? Thanks for watching.